In 2013, a horror film stormed the world and redefined supernatural cinema, The Conjuring. Its success sparked an entire universe of chilling sequels: The Conjuring 2, The Devil Made Me Do It, which is The Conjuring 3, and the upcoming The Conjuring Last Rites, set to release September 5th. But behind every jump scare and terrifying scene lies a real case file from paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren. Today, we're uncovering the true stories that inspired this franchise. I'm Dave, and this is Hitchcock's Picks. I live and breathe horror, so if you do too, hit like, subscribe, and let's dive straight into the first bone-chilling case. In January 1971, Roger and Caroline Perron moved into a secluded farmhouse in Harrisville, Rhode Island, with their 5 daughters. Almost immediately, they experienced strange and unsettling phenomena. Brooms disappeared without explanation. Scraping sounds echoed through empty rooms, and small piles of dirt appeared on freshly cleaned floors. The children began seeing spirits, some harmless, others terrifying. One appeared as a boy.
And the door opened, and she said a little blonde boy with watery green eyes peeked out of the door, and she looked at him and she was like,
Another as a woman in grey. And the presence the family feared most they associated with Bathsheba Sherman. Local legend claimed she had been a 19th century woman rumored to practice witchcraft, though there was no trial or evidence of infant sacrifice. Andrea Perron later described the house as a portal where multiple dimensions seemed to intersect. The family also reported hearing chanting.
And what were they saying? There are 7 dead soldiers buried in the wall.
And witnessing objects move violently on their own. As the hunting escalated, beds levitated or shook violently at 5:15 every morning. Caroline woke with bruises she could not explain. A stinking, rotting odor would fill the rooms, and Roger often felt a cold, oppressive presence in the basement whenever the heating system failed. In 1974, the Warrens were called. Lorraine Warren conducted a seance to investigate the activity. Andrea, who secretly observed it, later described her mother as speaking in tongues in a voice that was not her own. Caroline's chair lifted off the floor, and she was violently thrown across the room. The event was so terrifying that Roger Perron physically expelled the Warrens from the house, telling them never to return. The film compresses nearly a decade of these ambiguous and terrifying events into a tight, 3-act story with an exorcism. In reality, the Warrens' intervention did not resolve the haunting. It marked its peak. The Perron family endured the remaining years until they could finally move out in 1980, leaving behind a house still shadowed by unexplainable phenomena. However, according to Andrea Perron, the movie is only about 5% accurate. The remaining 95% of the events were either exaggerated or entirely fabricated for Hollywood. After the Perron family's hunting in Rhode Island, the Warrens were soon drawn into another infamous case, this time in London, known as the Enfield Poltergeist. In August 1977, Peggy Hudson, a single mother in Enfield, London, began experiencing strange disturbances in her home with her 4 children, primarily 11-year-old Janet. Doors slammed on their own, furniture shifted without explanation, and heavy objects flew across rooms.
And the chest of drawers near the wall and the door had slid into sort of the doorway.
Janet began speaking in a deep, unfamiliar voice, claiming to be the house's former resident, Bill Wilkins. Over 2 years, Thousands of neighbors and even a local police constable reported witnessing inexplicable events. The activity escalated. Janet was reportedly levitating above her bed. Objects moved violently during the night, and the children claimed the presence of multiple unseen entities. Peggy's home became a media sensation, with journalists and paranormal enthusiasts visiting to witness the phenomena firsthand. Lorraine and Ed Warren's role in the real case was minimal. According to lead investigator Guy Leon Playfair, the Warrens arrived uninvited and spent only a brief time at the Hudson home. They had no official mandate from the church, and their presence was largely symbolic. The bulk of the investigation and documentation was handled by Playfair and his team from the Society for Physical Research. Skeptics later revealed that many of the phenomena were fabricated or exaggerated by the children. Janet and her sister were caught on video bending spoons, faking noises, and hiding recording devices. Analysts argue that the famous levitation photograph merely shows Janet jumping off her bed, not suspended by supernatural forces. Even her deep, gruff, demonic voice was sometimes a trick, with the sisters seen covering their mouths during recordings to simulate possession. The film, however, compresses the 2-year ordeal into a short, dramatic narrative. The Warrens are cast as central heroes battling the demonic Non-Valak. Orchestrating the haunting and ultimately saving the family. In reality, their involvement was minor, and much of the chaos was a mix of childish pranks, media exaggeration, and genuine but ambiguous disturbances. According to Guy Leon Playfair and other first-hand accounts, only about 5 to maybe 10% of the events portrayed in the film reflect real, unexplained phenomena. The remaining 90% were either fabricated by the children, exaggerated by the media, or entirely invented for cinematic effect. Following the Enfield in London, the Warrens faced one of their most chilling investigations back in the United States. The Brookfield, Connecticut case, better known as The Devil Made Me Do It. In 1980, 11-year-old David Glatzel of Brookfield, Connecticut, began exhibiting alarming and unexplained behaviors. He reportedly levitated above his bed, spoke in deep, unfamiliar voices, and bore mysterious scratches on his body. His family, desperate for help, called in Ed and Lorraine Warren to investigate. During one exorcism, Arne Cheyenne Johnson, David's fiance's older brother, allegedly confronted the demon. The entity was said to leave David and enter Johnson instead, setting the stage for an unprecedented legal drama. Month later, on February 16, 1981, Johnson stabbed his landlord, Alan Buno, following an argument. At his trial, his defense team attempted the first ever plea of not guilty by reason of demonic possession. The court immediately rejected it. Judge Robert Callahan stated plainly, "I'm not going to allow the defense of demon possession, period." Johnson was convicted of first-degree manslaughter and served 5 years of a 10 to 20-year sentence.
The devil made me do it.
I said, "Why am I here?" And they said, "Well, you just killed your friend." The nature of our...
The film presents the Warrens as central figures racing against time to save Johnson, portraying the possession as undeniable and dramatizing the trial as a supernatural thriller. In reality, their involvement was limited to the initial investigation of David Glatzel, and there was no proven connection between demonic activity and Johnson's crime. According to court records and first-hand accounts, only about 10% of the film reflects actual events. The remaining 90% is Hollywood's embellishment, dramatizing the Warrens' role and the supernatural elements for cinematic effect. After Brookfield, the Warrens were called to yet another disturbing case, the Smurl Haunting. In 1974, Jack and Janet Smurl moved into a duplex on Chase Street in West Pittstown, Pennsylvania, along with their extended family. Almost immediately, strange events began. Objects vanished and reappeared. Foul odors filled the air, and unexplained noises echoed through the house. Over the next 15 years, the family would claim escalating phenomena, from ominous black masses floating in the rooms to terrifying physical and even sexual assaults. By 1986, the Smurls' desperation drew the attention of Ed and Lorraine Warren. The Warrens reported dramatic supernatural activity, sudden temperature drops, violent shaking of furniture, and visions of malevolent spirits. Their intervention, heavily publicized, transformed the family's private ordeal into a national spectacle. Yet, the reality behind the headlines was far murkier. Independent investigators were repeatedly denied access. Skeptics pointed to environmental causes like the house settling over old coal mines. And some later tenants reported no paranormal activity at all. Financial incentives, a book deal, and prospective movie rights fueled further controversy. As I watched the trailers for The Conjuring Last Rites, it's clear the film leans into the familiar horror formula: a single powerful demon, dramatic exorcisms, and the Warrens as the sole saviors. But the trailers already hint at differences from the real story, condensing a 15-year ordeal into a streamlined narrative and amplifying events for cinematic tension. So, according to reports from UPI interviews with the Smurls in 1986, perhaps only a small fraction of the events in the trailers are likely grounded in the actual testimonies. These real cases inspired the Conjuring films, but the movies are designed to terrify, not to teach history. Some events are true, some are exaggerated, and some are pure Hollywood inventions. But that's what makes these films so compelling. What do you think? Am I right that only about 5 to 10% of the story in these films reflects real events? Or do you see it differently? Do you believe in demons? And if you want more horror recommendations, reviews, and deep dives into what makes a movie truly scary, hit like, subscribe, and join me here on Hitchcock's Picks.